Hi, yeah. So it's been a long time since we did our introduction
More than a week.
like a month.
Yeah.
Of the introduction to Whedon Me This, but now we're actually going to talk about the first two episodes of Buffy, Welcome to the Harvest and Hellmouth.
Yeah. Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest.
And we actually watched the first two episodes in this very room.
Yes. For the first time ever.
And I really don't have many memories of watching the first two episodes or really any at all. It was pretty much all in the first season in general. Well, I do remember some stuff from the first season in general, but we'll get to that when we get to those episodes.
Yes.
But I kind of remember that it was a thing that my mother didn't want me to watch, and I was 8. And really, now that I watch Buffy as an adult, I think I was probably too young really to watch Buffy, but in a way I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it shaped a lot of who we are, so I think it was a good thing that we watched it as young. But we talked a little bit about that before.
Yeah. And I guess, like, for me, Buffy was, for a lot of people my age or our age, like, Batman, being on television was, like, a huge thing because it was, like, this kid show, but it was at the same time, like, really adult.
Yeah.
Like, Batman never felt as big of a deal for me and hasn't stuck with me as much because I watched Buffy as a kid.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Where pretty much, like, the same concepts that were in Batman were also in Buffy. But Buffy was, for a teen and up audience.
Yep.
So I guess that, because I watched that, like, that was, like, my big childhood geekdom thing. Not Batman, but Buffy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the first couple of episodes, Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest, really took that platform and that idea of appealing to a teen audience in terms of a genre show. Obviously, that was extremely groundbreaking. They took that idea and they ran with it.
Yeah.
And it was no holds barred. There was no hand-holding going on through any of the first season. I mean, that very first scene, shocks you. And that's what Joss Whedon wanted to do, and that's what he wanted his work to be. He wanted you, the audience, us, the audience, to stand up and take notice.
To think, and also to think about your what you're watching and why stories are the way that they are, especially genre fiction.
And to be an active participant.
Yeah.
And he wanted us to think, oh, what are they doing here? What's behind what we're seeing on screen?
Yeah. Clearly
this is an allegory for something. Clearly he is making a statement. And that's what the entire show is. It's a reflection.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess as much as Joss did make Buffy to be an icon, and he talked about this, about
that's why he created
why
her.
he made her. And one of the things, like, especially in horror movies, because he, like most, like all geeks and nerds, because Joss himself is a geek and nerd.
Yes, he is.
He, loves horror movies, and, he always sees a lot of the times the girl, in a dark alley or a dark place or trapped somewhere.
In a place of submission.
Yeah, and the guy who's the killer, the man killer person, comes and kills this girl. And Joss said he always felt bad for her, so he wanted to make a woman who killed the killer, who didn't get killed by the killer. And that's in Welcome to the Hellmouth, where Buffy is walking to the bronze and Angel is following her, and he comes into the alley, but she's up she's up on a pole, and then she swoops down and kicks him.
Yep.
Where she's the one in charge. It's not, she isn't the victim. She's the one with the power.
Yeah, she has the cards to play.
Yeah.
And clearly she doesn't know Angel's intention, but Joss is showing us that Buffy is a punch first, ask questions later kind of girl. If you are going to threaten her in some way, or she thinks that you are
A threat.
not of the good, then she is going to, she's got her dukes up and she's ready to fight.
She's ready to take you out.
Exactly.
And you know, where as much as, you know, Joss is a feminist, I also think, you know, he's a genre writer as much as he is, where he understands and from, you know, growing up with comic books, like that these things are allegory, that you know, that's what genre fiction is. It's always an allegory for something. You know, you use, you know, these concepts to give your audience a lesson, whatever that is.
And this is his platform.
And that's his platform. And, you know, he's like that with all of his work. And, of course, you know, certain themes occur over and over again. And, I guess with feminism, I think that Buffy and all of his work, even if you yourself may not much like the title of feminist for whatever reason, Buffy and Joss's work isn't exclusionary to you. With, you know, he's for women as people and empowerment of people, so empowerment of women.
Yeah.
Like, people, if we look at Giles and Xander in the first two episodes, Giles, you know, he's there, he's a man with a mission, you know, to make Buffy a slayer and to, you know, rid the world of evil. Yeah. And all of that.
And he's extremely gung-ho to do that. You know, he's got his book in his hands. He's like, here you go, let's get started.
And, you know, he slams the book down, and if you watch the scene, like, he looks excited.
Yeah,
like, he's like, you're Miss Summers, and you know, when he's like, I know what you're after, and he smiles when he puts the book down.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, you know, I can't believe she's here.
Yeah. This is a party, and you're invited.
Yeah.
You're the guest of honor.
Yeah. Yeah, he's so happy to be doing the work. And with Xander, he goes with Buffy down in the tunnel to look for Jesse. Yep. Because he can't not. Right. Because that's the kind of person he is. Where he needs to help Buffy, and he needs to look for his friend. Like, he can't just sit in class, like, knowing that this is happening. And he's not like Willow, where, you know, Willow is her computers and stuff, and Giles is his books and stuff. You know, that's not Xander. He needs to be the support for Buffy.
The loyal friend.
And, you know, another thing about the men in Buffy who are, you know, the allies, is that they rally around her. So, like, they automatically defer to her. She is their leader.
There never is a scene in Buffy, spoiler alert, where they're like, oh, you're a woman, we can't listen to you. Yeah. That's not even an issue.
Yeah. So yeah, women as people and the empowerment of people, which, you know, is men too. Exactly. And I mean, obviously there isn't much empowerment of really anybody except for maybe Buffy in these first two episodes. But as the show goes on, you know, Giles finds his power too, and so does Xander and Willow, obviously, too, you know. Yeah. But
literally she finds her power.
Literally finds her power. Yeah. So Yeah, everybody gets in on growing, on changing, on becoming better people. Like it's not just Buffy, it's not just the women in the show, it's everybody.
Absolutely.
Another thing about Buffy is when you sort of compare it to other shows, like not just genre shows, is that you saw that it really had no growing pains conceptually.
Yeah.
Like Buffy from the first scene knows what it is.
Absolutely.
And, where Darla comes in with that guy. And, misdirection is another thing that Joss Whedon likes to play on audience expectations, is something that he very much does, and
does
very
all
much
the time.
Is aware of. Is, you see the young couple, and you think like something's gonna come and get them, but it's the girl who's the monster.
Yep.
And like that right away. And it's like, this is what this is.
Yeah. And this is the audience's first experience of Whedon doing that, because obviously we haven't seen another television by him yet. But this act of misdirection and presenting something and then being like, oh, just kidding, this is not exactly what you think it is. It's something that he's known for now.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that we expect.
Yeah.
So now it's like, here's this scene. If this scene with Darla and boy number 1 came up now, today, if we saw this on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we'd be like, yeah, okay, well, we know that something is going on here.
Yeah.
This isn't what we think it is.
Yeah, but, I think, well, of course, I think Joss is a great artist, but there are, certain writers, definitely. Anne and I follow television writers where they wrote that. Like, Anne and I both like Supernatural, and we love Ben Edlund, and other people who are fans of Edlund too, like, you're like, Edlund wrote that.
Yeah.
Nobody else could have written that.
You can see his mark.
Yeah, and Joss, like, nobody else could have written that but Joss Whedon. Husband bulge.
Yeah.
And bad reaction. You know who wrote that. You know who wrote that joke.
Yeah.
Or who wrote that scene, or who wrote that whatever. And because Joss has such a strong voice, such a strong presence, Buffy just came, when it was birthed into the world, he knew exactly what he wanted it to be.
Yes.
And it was that from first scene to last
From the
scene.
get-go.
From the get-go. And to the end.
Yes, and he knew that misdirection was going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
He knew that was a part of this concept. We're taking this beautiful teenage girl, and we're going to say, okay, you're going to be in high school, you're going to be a high school student, but guess what? You're going to have this whole other life as well, which we see when Buffy, opens her trunk, and it's all of her girly stuff on top, and then she takes that out, and it's what is underneath that matters. It's the cross, it's the holy water, it's the stake. That is who she is.
Right.
She is those two layers.
Yeah, and Joss, like, said that, very much, was kind of who Buffy was as, like, a physical thing. Like, the girly thing on top, but then, to take that away with the false bottom of who she really was, and how and why she has to hide. And that's a very strong visual cue and visual metaphor for both Buffy and the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that especially during these first couple of episodes, Whedon's like, this is the idea I have, this is what we're doing. Obviously, he does not exist in a vacuum. Whedon has to get this concept out to his entire team of people. This includes his actors, obviously, but it also includes the crew and the directors. So this is something that he is not only selling to, himself, and that he has to know, but he has to get this unheard of idea out to all of these other people that he's working with.
And it was a bit tough with the directors at the start, because really no show, I mean, now you turn on any genre show on the CW and it's funny, it's dramatic, there's a reference joke, there's like 500 reference jokes in the thing.
Ha, the Lost ending sucked. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, like I just watched Arrow, and you can tell that it's very much a legacy of Buffy, as much as I suppose it's a legacy of like DC and comic books, but it also is a legacy of Buffy, and so is Supernatural. I mean, it's also a legacy of the X-Files,
but what isn't?
But what isn't? I mean, Buffy is a legacy of the X-Files. Yes. Without the X-Files, Buffy wouldn't have existed. But where, you know, it's like all of these things where it's you know, it's like a stew, you know, like stone soup.
Yes.
Where you put a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah. And you're asking these directors who, just like us, the audience, have never had this experience. The first-time directors don't understand, okay, so we're going to go from this super dark scene to, okay, it's daylight now, it's the next day, it's bright, look, Xander's being funny.
Yeah.
So we're going from this deep, dark, horror scene, and then bam, flip it around, and oh, ha ha ha, oh, it's such a nice day, blah, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
and you know, action and just a whole bunch of stuff where, you know, in genre television now, that's pretty much
for granted.
That's the norm, and you take it for granted.
Yeah.
And it's because of Buffy that it's now like that.
Absolutely. Another thing is, you know, along with this, as Whedon is creating his world, he's building his world, there needs to be a way to get from, okay, so we have a vampire problem. So Jesse is down in the deep, dark sewer somewhere, and we don't know where he is, and we don't know how to get to him. So Joss needed to create a way where he could wrap this episode up in 40 minutes, because that's what you have to do. You can't spend your entire day going, okay, well, we're going to research now. We're just going to throw some things out there and see what happens. Joss created a world where, oh, wait, let's go online. Let's go to monsters.com, not monster.com, monsters.com, and find out about this vampire, about how to kill this vampire, about how to find where he or she is. And so he created monsters.com. He created this elaborate tunnel system that the Master is using as his lair. He created all of these things where we would be able to, when Giles puts down that book that's vampire with the R at the end of it, the old spelling, he created this world within his world.
Yeah.
For us right away, bang, all of this stuff exists already, because our characters need this, but the audience needs this as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so important in genre fiction to establish your rules, like, right away. Like, if you're doing a genre show, you need to know the rules, how this world works, and what your vampires can do, and what the properties of your vampires are, which we see in Buffy. Like, we know holy water and you know, stake to the heart, and I think fire comes later, but sunlight, that they can't go out in sunlight, which is one of the reasons why they use the tunnels, why they need to use the tunnels,
the tunnel system,
right? Like, you know, where that's, you know, a concept, a problem, that you have to solve.
Conceptually, how are we going to do this? We've got it. Here it is for you, audience.
Yeah, and you know, thinking about, like, to take any first episode of any genre show, and it's like that. Like with True Blood, when Bill is caught by the rat trays, and you know he has the silver
around his
across him,
Yeah.
and you know Sookie pulls it off, where
Yeah.
it's like, this is what silver does to vampires.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing with Buffy. Like, what can your vampires do? What can your Slayer do? Like, the same thing with Buffy. Like, what is Buffy's powers?
Yeah.
And you know, Watchers, like, what are they for?
Right.
What do Watchers do?
Right.
And it all is for, you know, making your world seem more real.
Absolutely.
And one of the things, like, if you're as big of a fan of Buffy and you kind of think about the Slayer, Buffy isn't remarkable because she's the Slayer. She's remarkable because she's Buffy. Like, because there's been thousands of Slayers over, you know, thousands of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, how many Slayers have really averted the apocalypse? Like, and how many times?
Right.
You know, usually, I wonder the longest a person has been a Slayer. You know, they die usually. You know, if they even make it to 30, that's probably like a miracle.
Right.
For a Slayer.
They have a very truncated shelf life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like that's, and it's because of this, you know, group of friends that Buffy lasts as long
As she
does. And I mean, Spike says it later, but you get that about watching the show. That's because Buffy has her friends.
Yep.
That she's Buffy.
Yep.
It's not because she's the Slayer.
Right. It's the team. And it's Buffy as a person that she attaches herself to these other people.
Yeah.
It's because of who she is, not what she is.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's a good thing, because I mean, you know, a character can be a concept, and certainly Buffy is an icon, but on its own, that really doesn't mean anything to a person, unless, you know, you have a person attached to that concept, and Buffy is attached to that concept.
Absolutely. And another thing is, just in going back to the 2 episodes of the show, and as these 2 episodes were, you know, in production, being released and everything like that, you know, Whedon had all of these extra characters, the characters on the fringes, you know, so he brought Angel, David Boreanaz, on to be on for a couple episodes, then he was going to be axed. Well, clearly, you and I know that didn't happen.
No.
David Boreanaz, of course, was the showrunner for Angel. You know, he had his own series.
Or the lead character, not the showrunner.
Oh, yeah. No. He had his own series.
Yeah.
Based on his character that was going to last a couple of episodes. So Whedon listened to the fans and
himself, I suppose, too.
And himself, yeah. His, you know, when the concept, when his idea was actually in production and happening, it was like, maybe this guy should stick around. Maybe we could do something else with him.
Yeah.
And that also is true for Julie Benz and Mercedes McNabb's characters.
Darla and Harmony.
Respectively.
Yeah.
They were both going to be written off the show. They certainly weren't introduced to be major characters in the series.
Or the universe.
In the universe, yeah. Because they both transition over to Angel. Ironically. But Joss was able to understand what he was doing and, you know, take what he was putting out there and to mold it in different ways. So it's not like he was like, yeah, okay, all right, we're on, you know, episode 3. Julie is gonna, not Julie, sorry, Julie Benz. Darla is going to die, you know, so we need to put the axe down and get moving. So that's something that he was able to do for the show.
Well, I mean, obviously, Darla does die, but then they bring her back in Angel. She comes back to life, so it's all good.
Spoiler alert,
Yeah,
right?
spoiler.
Yeah.
That you didn't know that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I guess other things that Buffy introduced to the world was, the lighting.
Yeah, the lighting's actually a pretty big deal. It's something that you and I take for granted. Now, I know I certainly do. Watch any episode of Supernatural, and half of it is in the dark. But it's not dark. Clearly, it's not a black screen. You can see what's going on. Buffy was the first teen genre show, thank you X-Files, that took the shades of black and made it a concept that was marketable in teen genre fiction.
Yeah.
Which really didn't exist before Buffy as a genre anyway. But, I digress again. So the lighting, you know, here we are walking. We're down in the tunnels. It's dark in the tunnels. Let's be real. There isn't some magical light source. It is dark. And Joss Whedon didn't make some fake magical light source. He's like, it's dark in here, you guys.
Yeah.
And we're going to light it that way. And it was something that was, aside from the X-Files, not seen on television, and something today where we're like, yeah, obviously, they're in a tunnel, it's dark.
or I mean, Kim Manners, who did X-Files, you know, went on to Supernatural. But,
R.I.P. Kim Manners.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's a reason why X-Files, or why Supernatural is dark. Well, one of the reasons. But, you know, even genre fiction, like, again, to talk about, like, the CW genre shows, if they're...
Vampire Diaries, Arrow.
I don't know, Tomorrow People, is that another one? I don't pay as much attention.
Used to be, Roswell used to be. Okay, we're done. Keep going,
yeah.
sorry. Keep going all day.
Right, where all of these shows, their palette, their darkness, physical darkness, not like darkness in concept, came from Buffy.
Yep.
And, yeah, so Buffy, while it is a legacy of a lot of things, other stuff is now a legacy to Buffy.
Mm-hmm.
Because where, like, Buffy, like I said, the X-Files, and certainly, like, the comic books that Joss Whedon read, and, you know, Kitty Pryde was big for making Buffy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, horror movies and all the stuff he liked.
Yep.
Now Buffy is an important touchstone of you know, now of the things that have come after it.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of, talking a bit about Supernatural, a lot of the genre, the writers on Supernatural say, yeah, we love Buffy. And even one of the writers have admitted that Buffy made him want to be a writer. The new guy, Robert Burns, who answered my question.
On Twitter.
So Buffy is very much a part of a tradition in genre fiction.
Yes.
Where, you know, it's both an influence of other things and then has gone on to be an influence of other work. So it's, yeah, it is part of the tradition of, yeah, I guess 90s genre fiction and 2000s and even on to today, because of course, and also the writers who were writers on Buffy now are still employed and are working on other stuff.
Yay!
So, you know, good for them.
We're very happy.
Very happy. And, you know, especially, even though, well, Tim Minear never wrote for Buffy, but he wrote for pretty much everything else that Joss was a part of. Yeah. And it's like, you know, in American Horror Story, where, like, he's finally on a show that won't get canceled. And people can finally appreciate his work.
How amazing he is. Ben Edlund, David Fury, Jane Espenson.
All of these people have jobs.
We love you all.
Yeah. And are writing for other stuff now.
Did I say Ben Edlund?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So to kind of wrap this up, talking about, I how the characters and how Joss wanted to make it where everybody is Willow, is Xander, is Buffy, and
is Cordelia.
And where all of this, like, is kind of genderless.
Yes.
Like, the traits of being funny. Like, one of the things that, you know, women are often, I guess, accused of is not being funny. But Charisma Carpenter is obviously very funny.
Yes.
She's hilarious, and she has amazing timing.
Yes.
And so right, like, you're funny, you're heroic, or you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You can be an asshole too, and being an asshole isn't, you know, about being a man or being a woman. Anybody can be that way.
And certainly this is true for the first 2 episodes. Each character sort of embodies a concept. Naturally, as the show becomes what it eventually will be, the lines blur. Xander is not only funny. Yes, he is going to say something every 5 minutes that'll break up the scene and that will make us laugh. Yes, that is true. However, he has his own pain, you know, he has
his own struggles.
He has many more things and is much more than just the funny guy.
Yeah.
And that's something that Joss wants to reflect off of the entire audience.
Yeah.
Cordelia is not only the bitch. She is the first couple of episodes, but she's not always going to be. You are going to see more of her true colors.
Yeah. Buffy isn't only the action girl. Willow isn't only the computer nerd. Giles isn't only, like, this stuffy old guy who's, like, stern and tells Buffy what to do.
And that's true for all of us.
Yeah.
All of his audience.
Yeah.
And Cordelia in particular, you know, Joss created because, he created her for 2 reasons. One of the reasons is he wanted to show us what Buffy was like before. Because as we go through the series, Buffy will make reference like, yeah, I was just like Cordelia. You think Cordelia is bad? I was worse than that. He wanted to be able to introduce Cordelia so the audience could connect with what Buffy used to be and could appreciate her for what she is now when we're interacting with Buffy. However, he also created her because he wanted to say, hey, guess what, guys? You're bitches sometimes too. Sometimes you do bad things to people. It happens. It's a part of humanity. Especially in high school. And, you know, this is something, obviously, Buffy, feminist icon. But he didn't create Cordelia to be like, yeah, Cordelia is like the sarcastic bitch girl. Like, you know, he didn't do that
or
to
like
cut
a rival to Buffy.
Exactly.
That's not why he made Cordelia.
Exactly.
Which in like other fiction, that's what Cordelia would be.
Yeah.
Like she would be like Buffy's rival for, you know, Angel's affection, I guess. Which, you know, she kind of is in 2nd season. But
that's not the driving force of her character.
No.
Just like with Willow wasn't created just to be, the meek girl who's saved by Buffy all the time. That's not why these characters were created. They were all created for a specific purpose, which is revealed a little bit more and more as we go through the series.
Okay. Well, that's all. We'll probably, we had to get, a lot of conceptual stuff out of the way for this episode. But
and thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah, when we talk about the witch, we'll talk more specifically about the witch.
Actual episode.
Yeah, but...
And it won't be 100 minutes long, we promise.
Okay, yeah. There was a lot to talk about this time.
Yeah.
Okay, sayonara, auf Wiedersehen.
Thanks for listening. Mwah!